Sex abuse scandal at Penn State has cost a college football legend his job. Joe Paterno announced today he's going to retire at the end of the season. His former assistant, Jerry Sandusky, is charged with molesting 8 boys, some on campus. A grand jury report says that Paterno was told about one incident and went to his superiors, but never called police. In a statement today, Paterno concedes he should have done more. Mark Brennan, he has covered Penn State football for more than 20 years. His blog is FightOnState.com. He's joining us from State College, Pennsylvania. And Mike Pesca is a correspondent for National Public Radio, and he is in New York. So, Mark, I want to start off with you, first of all. Joe Paterno, stepping down, he's out. Is that the right way that the university handled this?
Sorry, was that to me?
Yeah, Mark?
I'm Mike.
Oh, Mike,
I'm sorry. Got it.
Yeah.
Go ahead if you take the question.
I'll take that question. I'm more than happy to take that question. You know, is this the right thing? Yeah, absolutely. Joe Paterno has always said if he becomes a distraction to this program, that he would step away. Obviously, he became a huge distraction. I think he realized that. I think he realized the magnitude of what went down and finally decided to step away. I think he did the right thing. The question now is, are they going to allow him to retire at the end of the season, or are they going to try to get him out sooner?
And your website, I understand, Penn State football website has been blowing up, getting lots of traffic here. What are most people saying here? Are they behind? Are they supporting these guys? Do they believe the charges? Do they believe Sandusky is innocent? Do they believe the coach didn't really know very much?
I think, the majority of people are shocked. They're dismayed. They're disgusted by these things. If you read the reports, the grand jury reports, everybody is riled up about that, and they're really wondering how this was allowed to happen at Penn State. So most people are not giving benefit of the doubt. It's interesting, though, that the students seem to be rallying behind Joe Paterno. They've been at his house, as everybody has seen on TV, that sort of thing. But people very angry about this situation, and a lot of Penn State fans, longtime Penn State fans, are viewing this as the darkest day in Penn State football history.
Mark, I guess the game must go on. This big game with Nebraska, is that still happening? And I understand that the players, they've been banned from speaking to the media.
No, well, actually, they lifted the ban today after Joe Paterno talked to the team. Yeah, it was a tearful meeting from what we understand. The players talked about it. We were able to talk to the players coming out of the Lash football building where they had their team meeting, and Joe Paterno broke the news to them. The players said Joe Paterno was crying. Many of the players were having trouble. They were so emotional. You could tell that they had been crying. This is a guy who was an icon to them, a father figure to them, and it's obviously very difficult. I don't know how they're going to zero in on this game at Beaver Stadium against Nebraska. They claim they're going to be able to do it. It's going to be difficult.
All right, I want to go to Mike here. Mike, this is obviously a huge story in sports. And some are questioning whether this whole culture of big college sports, athletics, where you have athletes coach these programs that bring in millions of dollars, whether or not they all get a pass, right, on these kinds of things, whether it's failing grades, bad behavior. How do you think this fits into that larger sports culture?
The problem with college football, if there is a problem, and I think even any observer would say that something bad is going on here, mostly has to do with the fact that there is free labor. Sure, players get scholarships, but mostly 19 and 20-year-olds providing free labor and colleges making billions of dollars in revenue. So that when any scandal surfaces and it deals with a street agent, or it deals with players engaging in academic chicanery, or it deals with even teams practicing more than they're allowed to, like we saw at the University of Michigan, other colleges talk to their compliance officers, do sort of a gut check and say, is that happening here? Let's not at least get caught. And hopefully you'd think they'd say, let's change things. I don't think colleges at all think about pedophilia, and they probably shouldn't. But as you say, the reason that this might have to do with the larger culture is that coaches have been so enabled and emboldened that someone like Jerry Sandusky could get away with this for so long, and someone like Joe Paterno, who, to put it in perspective, Joe Paterno has been at Penn State longer than Queen Elizabeth has been Queen of England, longer than Fidel Castro was president of Cuba. He's been coached there longer than any pope, longer than any Supreme Court justice. We use words like institution for people with half his tenure. And that this could happen to someone like Joe Paterno perhaps really shows how important perhaps over-important, the position of head coach has become in America.
Does it surprise you at all that the athletic and university officials may have not reacted more strongly to these accusations, even perhaps swept it under the rug?
It seems shocking from the remove that we have, which is just from a human perspective. A person on staff witnessed not a molestation or something that had some sort of gray area. He witnessed a child rape. In fact, Frank Noonan, who's a 30-year veteran of the FBI and is in Pennsylvania law enforcement, said he's never seen an example where someone was an eyewitness to this kind of horrific crime and it didn't go further. However, these people deal with adults, 18-year-olds who come to campus are adults. They're not trained in recognizing the signs of pedophilia. And I talked with an expert named Robert Shoup, who teaches at Kansas State, and he says we all think because we're good people, we know how to deal with a sexual predator, or we would know what to do when confronted by it. That's not necessarily the case, and I do think it's telling that the reason that charges were brought against Sandusky was that Central Mountain High School, a high school, the good civil servants there who were trained in how to recognize pedophilia, they turned it over to the police. That got the ball rolling on the Penn State part of the investigation.
I want to bring up one other quick issue, if I may, because a lot of people are asking this question, whether or not it would have been different, right, if this was involving, say, a 10-year-old girl, that the fact that this was all men involved and that these were boys involved, that this was kind of handled in the way it was. What do you make of that?
I think that men actually think of themselves as fathers, and that's why it's so disturbing. I mean, Joe Paterno has sons. The assistant coach who first saw it called his dad. He is a son. So there have been sex scandals in sports. There was a recent sex scandal with USA Swimming, and that dealt with female swimmers. We don't know. It's a hypothetical. But I think it's, if anything, just as shocking and horrific and hard to understand why nothing happened at Penn State.
All right. Mike, Mark, thank you very much for your perspective. We really appreciate that.
All right, other big stories that we're following this hour. Legendary Penn State head football coach Joe Paterno says he will retire at the end of the year. The announcement follows the arrest of one of his former coaches in an alleged child sex abuse scandal. Paterno was met by supporters and media outside his home last night. In a statement today, Paterno says he is, quote, absolutely devastated by the developments in the case involving his ex-defensive coordinator, Jerry Sandusky. Coming up in just a few minutes, I'll speak live with a Penn State student who knows Paterno personally. He's about to reveal what drove the coach to tears last night. Right now, however, let's head to Jason Carroll, who just heard from some Penn State football players. So, Jason, how are they reacting to Paterno resigning at the end of the season?
Yes, Frederica, just heard from these players just about 20 minutes ago, spent a little bit of time with them. Basically, all three of them telling me that they trust Paterno, made the right decision for the team, for himself, and for the university. So they are putting their trust in him. They said they received a text to show up for a meeting at just about 11 a.m. They said once Paterno showed up, he made his announcement. He said there were some 150 players there. He said literally turned around, lots of tears were flowing. He said Paterno was very emotional when he made his statement. Want you to take a listen to what one of the players told me just a few minutes ago. So I want to start out with how the announcement came down from Coach Paterno. Obviously, you guys received some sort of a text. Take it from there. What happened next?
We just got a text from the team saying that we had a meeting, and we just all came in, and then Coach Joe just gave us his announcement that he's going to be retiring after the season.
What was some of the immediate reaction from some of the guys? How do you think the team took the news?
I mean, it was just pretty surreal, the whole thing. We kind of, heard the rumors going around. We try to put it to the side, obviously, but I mean, to, hear him come out and say it really, kind of just, brought us down to earth to what was really happening, and we're just trying to come together as a team.
And Frederica, I also asked those players whether they thought all of this criticism was being directed at Paterno, when some of the criticism they felt as though also should have been directed at the president of the University of Penn State, Graham Spanier. As you know, there have been many calls for Spanier's resignation as well. Those students telling me they just basically said, look, we're going to try and focus on the team. We're going to try and focus on the game this weekend. But they are definitely sad to see Paterno go. Frederica?
So, Jason, wasn't Paterno's contract to end at the end of the season? However, it's this cloud, this scandal that makes his departure that much more difficult for so many?
That's exactly what it is. When you look at a man like Paterno, who is a legend, not just here, but in the world of collegiate football, a man who's spent 46 years here as head coach, the most winningest coach in history in terms of college football. You look at the standard that he set, not just in terms of football on the field, but off the field in terms of dealing with these players. This man had a stellar reputation up until this moment.
All right, Jason Carroll, thanks so much. Of course, we're going to also get more reaction from Coach Paterno momentarily. All right, by now you've probably heard the disturbing details of boys allegedly raped, sodomized, and molested by a former Penn State football coach. The fallout of this is now reaching the top of the university's football program. We've learned that legendary Penn State football coach Joe Paterno will retire at the end of this season. Paterno's decision comes as Penn State's Board of Trustees plans to convene a special committee on Friday to investigate the allegations against its former defensive coordinator, Jerry Sandusky. The board is reportedly outraged by the grand jury report that alleges Sandusky victimized 8 boys, at least one as young as 7 or 8 years old. According to investigators, a 9th potential but unconfirmed victim has reached out to them. Sandusky has long maintained his innocence. He is out on $100,000 bond after being charged with 40 counts of various sex abuse charges. The troubling allegations have many questioning whether Penn State's president, its legendary football coach Joe Paterno, and others could have done more. In this statement, Paterno says, quote, "I am absolutely devastated by the developments in this case. I grieve for the children and their families. I have come to work every day for the last 61 years with one clear goal in mind, to serve the best interests of this university and the young men who have been entrusted to my care," end quote. Paterno goes on to say this, quote, "That's why I have decided to announce my retirement effective at the end of this season. This is a tragedy. It is one of the great sorrows of my life. With the benefit of hindsight, I wish I had done more," end quote. This was the scene outside Paterno's home just last night. Hundreds of Penn State students rallying behind him, hoping to save his job. TJ Bard, the president of the Undergraduate Association, is joining us now from University Park. So, TJ, word clearly has gotten out that Coach Paterno has decided to retire at the end of the season. What have people been saying on campus?
I think students are shocked. They're very surprised at the announcement. I think a lot of students are heartbroken. We've heard stories of students leaving their classes in tears, students coming together and really just reflecting on Paterno's legacy and his career here at Penn State.
So, TJ, students felt very confident that he would be able to survive this and he would not be stepping down?
I think rumors obviously have been flying around even prior to the scandal of the day that Joe Paterno would announce his retirement. And I think a lot of students had expectations that potentially this could have been his last season. I think a lot of students are very surprised that he just stepped down under these circumstances. And I think that is really the heartbreaking part of all of this.
We're looking at pictures right now. Last night outside his home, apparently a number of students were out there throwing their support to the coach. Were you there, or did you have any fellow classmates who were there who could describe the scene?
Yeah, I think it was one of a lot of pride, a lot of respect for Joe Paterno. I actually myself wasn't there, but I obviously was hearing a lot of reports from students who were there outside his front yard. I think it really meant a lot to the students that Joe Paterno actually came out and spoke to them, told them to really think about the victims and their families in this entire situation. I think that truly speaks to Joe Paterno's character in this entire situation.
How well did you know the coach, and what were your thoughts about him, or what are your thoughts about him?
Yeah, I've interacted with the coach over the past 2 years of my career here at Penn State. He is one of the most phenomenal individuals I've ever met in my entire life. He's truly an inspiration to me, and I think to this university as a whole. He's contributed so much to not only the football program, but academics, and like I said, he's just meant so much to this university, and I really, really highly respect him.
Okay, and the defense coordinator, Jerry Sandusky, did you have any interaction with him, or did you know anybody who had any strong opinions, especially as a result of these charges?
I myself have never interacted with Sandusky. I obviously have very strong opinions about the allegations. I think it is for lack of a better term, very disgusting, the allegations. And if these allegations are proven to be true, then obviously there needs to be some severe consequences.
All right, TJ Bard, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate that.